everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kat, and for today we're going to be looking at the new Nomad Cosmetics Haunted Europe palette. And isn't this packaging just already like all the spooky vibes? Oh my god, I absolutely love the outside packaging. So cute. And then the palette on the inside, whablam, is this holographic thing. It starts off with the Nomad design on the front, and you have like this lady in waiting or something, and then it switches to where it says Haunted Europe and she's like covered in a cloak with a skull. Oh, look at that back and forth. It's so cool. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love this. So we're gonna be taking a look at this for today, and if you are somewhat new to my channel, you might not know, but for Nomad Cosmetics, the entire premise behind their brand is that it's all about traveling and looking at awesome places throughout the world. And so what I like to do is, as I am doing some looks with the palette, I like to share some of my travel stories with you guys. Being in the Air Force, I've had the awesome fortune to be able to just kind of travel around a lot, especially while I was stationed in Germany. And so since this is Haunted Europe and I have visited several places in Europe, I thought I would share some of my spooky stories from some of the haunted places that I have visited. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to share some pictures as we do the look. I'm also going to share a couple looks that I have already done, because you best believe I have already been just all over this guy, because the color story, look, it's just all the spooky vibes. Absolutely love it. Oh my goodness, it's so pretty. Some of the metallics in here are just super duper cool. Really love dipping into this guy, and like, I'm gonna bring it in close so you guys can see. This is upside down. I'm trying not to blind you guys with the mirror on there, but you can see there's like a haunted castle etched into that shade. Then we've got some like tombstones, some bats on this one. You've got spider web on this one. You have some spooky forest trees on that guy. So just a whole lot of really awesome stuff going on in this palette. And so I am very excited. And so what we're gonna do is I am going to swatch the shimmer shades for you guys so you can see what those look like. And as I'm doing that, I will show you the two other looks that I have done with the palette. And then we will jump into the third look so that you can really kind of see a whole lot of different color schemes that you can do with this palette. And we will do that look as I tell you about my travels. All right, so first up we have this awesome gold metallic that is Houska Castle. And it is definitely a very pigmented yellow metallic shade. Very nice. Immediately opaque on there. Super duper pretty, but definitely more on the yellow side of the gold house. Then we have Highgate Cemetery, which is a light green iridescent shade. Very pretty. And this one is definitely a little bit more on like the minty green side of the house. Bring that nice and close for you guys. Just a really pretty iridescent shade. Very nice. Perfect for the inner corner. For this shade, I'm probably going to butcher the name, but it looks like Baku Forest. And this is a lighter champagne metallic shade. And definitely very light. It's almost blending into my skin on there. You can just ever so slightly see a nice shimmery gleam. And so honestly, to me, this shade on me would probably be a really nice subtle highlight actually. So I think that's very pretty for that. Then we have an awesome red metallic. This is the shade Bloody Mary. Really nice, rich cranberry red shade. Has a little bit of some gold glitter on top, like a gold bespecklement, and then some deeper red undertones. So you can see a little bit of the gold speckles and how it just has that really nice, deep, rich red shade. Oh, so pretty. Then we have a deeper gold shade. This is Boogie Man. And you can definitely see that this is more of an orange toned gold, whereas this guy is your yellow toned gold. So really nice difference in tones on there. Both equally as opaque though, really nice. This guy is definitely giving a little bit more shine than this one as well. So I would say this is like headed a little bit more towards a foiled, but not quite. Then we have the first of the gray metallic shades, and the grays in this palette are definitely some of my favorites. They are really nice. This first one is Big Bad Wolf. and it is just a really nice deep gunmetal gray. I would say has what looks like maybe some green and blue bespecklement in it. So there you can see just a little bit of the bespecklement of glitter mixed in there. I think that having a little bit of that green and blue glitter in there is part of what really makes this a very nice cool toned gray. Then we have Krampus, which is a really nice purple metallic. And yes, for the words I recognize, I will be pronouncing them properly. So this is a really nice purple shade. I would say almost more on the eggplant side, and then has more violet speckles of glitter in there, which are part of what give it that nice lilac-y sheen along with the eggplant undertones on there. Then we have the next awesome gray shade, and this guy has like definitely some borderline greens in there as well. And this is the Catacombs. Yes, look at that. Absolutely has like a really nice grungy green undertone to it. You can really see that standing out next to this guy, which looks very much like a true silver gray in comparison to this guy that is way more grungy. Awesome. I definitely was utilizing both of these gray tone shades along with a couple of the other matte shades, and then I think I used this guy actually on the inner corner in this eye look, and it turned out really nice. And I used one of the orange matte shades as well, which I think really kind of helped out. But I will be using more of that orange matte shade in today's eye look, along with definitely hitting those greens, because I have not touched the greens yet. And then speaking of greens, the second green metallic shade that we have is Mary Cemetery. And this is a really nice evergreen, foresty green type shade. Definitely significantly deeper than your mint iridescent shade that we had up top here. And also, I would say lining up to be a really nice grungy green on this one as well. There's just a little bit of some gold and blue bespecklements in there as well that are giving it that nice grungy tone. And for this second eye look, I was using Bloody Mary, which is this red shade, along with the Krampus shade, which is that deeper eggplanty purple. And so you can see just really nice, adds just a little bit of some extra color into there. And then I actually ended up using the Hoya Baku Forest shade on the inner corner, just as a little bit of a pop before I put the little bejeweled thing on there. So I thought both of those looks turned out really, really awesome. So I am excited for us to get into today's eye look, and I'm gonna tell you guys some of my travels. All right, so as we get started today, I'm gonna be jumping into the Frankenstein shade, which is a really nice matte orange, and that is gonna go on the inner third of my eye. So the first place that I wanted to tell you guys about was Prague, and I visited there actually before joining the military quite a few years ago, definitely well over a decade ago, so you're gonna enjoy seeing a photo of me when I was all young. I went there on my own, but ended up meeting up with two other young travelers, and so we kind of toured around the city together. And one of the things that Prague offers for tour groups is this red shirt tour group that just goes based on donations only, so it didn't cost anything. And we toured around the entire city, and one of the really interesting spooky places that we traveled to was a church that has a bit of an interesting backstory. I was not able to take a picture of the interior of the church, so instead I'm going to show you the castle that is at the top of the hill in Prague, because it gives a little bit of a spooky vibe as well with the soldiers that are outside, and the view is just amazing. But I'm going to tell you guys the haunted church story because I thought it was absolutely awesome. So within this church there is a really beautiful statue of the Virgin Mary, and as with many churches in Europe, there's all kinds of gold and jewels that are used for these statues, and so they are quite valuable. And there was a guy, a thief, that went into this church many centuries ago and thought it would be a good idea to attempt to steal some of the valuables that the Virgin Mary was holding in her hand. And the Virgin Mary did not appreciate this at all. And so it is said that when the thief went to grab the ball that she held in her hand that was worth many, many thousands of euros. I mean, obviously back then, not euros, but whatever. The Virgin Mary awoke from her statuesque, just still figure, grabbed the thief's hand and refused to let go. The thief was not discovered until the next day, was still alive, but at that time, the only way that they were able to remove the Virgin Mary from him was by amputating his arm. The next shade, a quick interlude, the next shade that I'm going to jump into is the Dragsholm Castle, which is a really nice matte brownish gray shade. I'm gonna go that in the middle. Now, at that time, medical science was not awesome, and so attempting to do an amputation was not a clean thing, and so they essentially had to rip his arm off. It was just absolutely grotesque, and as a warning to any possible future thieves, they hung up his arm in the church from a hook above the statue of the Virgin Mary. And so to this day, you can still see that arm hanging from that hook. We were not allowed to take any pictures inside of the church, so I was not able to get a picture of the arm, but I can assure you it was there. At least like 12 years ago when I went there. Another reason why this church is said to be haunted is that there's a stone monument that is inside the church, because at that time, if you were someone of importance, you were buried within churches inside of these really nice statue monuments, and so there was a count that was believed to be dead, and so he was buried inside of a coffin, and then that coffin was placed underneath this giant stone slab monument. At that time, people that would come into the church would hear just scratching and screaming, and were like, my God, you know, his soul is not at rest, you know, we just have to pray that his soul will eventually be at peace. And after a few days, it stopped. And so they thought, okay, his soul is finally at peace, you know, or he's just actually dead now. They didn't know that he had been buried alive until quite a few centuries later, when they were doing renovations on the church, and they opened the stone slab to try and refurbish some of the areas, and they discovered that the count had actually made it out of the coffin but couldn't get out of the weight of the stone slab that was on top of the monument. And so they found his body just there, like having attempted to get out. And so it is said that this church is incredibly haunted just because of these two absolutely insane stories of things that happen there. They also, within Prague, have these really, really awesome bars that you can go to. And so as we were finishing up the tour with the Red Shirt tour group, they did like a bar hopping type thing. And one of the bars that we went to was actually underground and was also said to be haunted. And it was just these caves. And as you would travel along the different caves, you would come across different sections that each had their own bar and different types of music playing. And they also just had a poop ton of like old Soviet Union memorabilia, just like all over the walls, like everywhere, just all kinds of stuff hanging around. So that was like also super interesting for me to come across as like a 19-year-old kid, like, ah, interesting. So I really, really enjoyed going to Prague. It's just an absolutely beautiful city. Yeah, so I would highly recommend checking out Prague if you get the chance, because it is just super spooky, super old vibes, just has so many buildings that are just centuries and centuries old. Really, really awesome. So I would highly recommend checking it out. For the outer third of the eye, I'm going to go into the green matte shade Grendel, and we are going to move on to Germany for this next haunted location, and we're going to be checking out Burg Berwartstein. And this particular location is said to be incredibly haunted, and I can tell you that as I was there, it's definitely a spooky castle as you're going there. They have all kinds of like taxidermy all over the place, knights with armor in cages and weapons everywhere. So it definitely gives off that like old medieval vibe. The views are spectacular, like it's super pretty from the top. But it was just like the interior was something else. Part of why it is said to be haunted is that there are tunnels and caves underneath the castle. It used to be that in order to get inside of the area, you would have to be like lowered in a basket to get inside the caves. And so they would send in children to like go and get the wines and foods and things like that that were stored down below. And what's actually very interesting is that within those tunnels This particular castle is outside of the village that is down below in the valley. That's somewhat commonplace for many of the castles within Germany, and is primarily meant as like, not only are you, you know, away from the commoners, but it was also a bit of a protection thing in times of war, that you would be able to utilize the castle to kind of keep your people safe. And so what they actually ended up doing was, during the World Wars, for the air raids, they would have the villagers come up to the castle and stay within the caves, because they were protected essentially by this massive fortress. And so it was just really, really interesting to kind of hear about that, because I wouldn't have really thought about that at all. But it was really interesting to find out that they used the castles to help keep the people that were locals for that area safe during the war. And so they would just bring in, you know, 100 people into this underground tunnel area to try and keep them safe. So that whole area is said to be just very, very haunted. Those tunnels underneath, when we were going through, the tour guides would talk about how, you know, the lights would flicker and they would hear sounds and things like that. And so it was just really kind of fun to hear about that if you enjoy ghost story type stuff. So I think for the under eye portion, I'm going to pull Grendel down. That's that green shade to the first half. And then for the inner half, I'm going to go into Spandau Citadel, which is a bit of a warmer matte brown than what this cool tone brown is on top. Another interesting thing about this particular castle is that it also has a well inside of it, which was also a method of being able to keep clean water without the concern that, like, outside enemies would be able to come in and pollute the water source. And so while we were there, we were able to go and see the well, and then the tour guide just was like, okay, we're all gonna chuck something in there so that way you can hear just how deep that well goes. And it took like a solid 10 seconds for anything to land. It was crazy. I was like, it's pretty deep. All right, so the last place that we're gonna go to is Scotland, and for that, we're gonna go to Edinburgh. We're gonna talk about 2 different locations in Edinburgh, and I am very excited about these. I did a trip out there with my mom while I was stationed in Germany, and we'd always wanted to go to Scotland, so we were both really, really excited about it. And the weather was like just absolutely perfect, because it was super cloudy and gloomy the whole time, so it really added to that feel of like everything being super duper haunted. So it was just absolutely perfect. Okay, so for shimmers, I am going to go into Mary Cemetery, which is that grungy green, and we're gonna apply that a little bit on top. So within Edinburgh, the 2 castles that we visited, the first was the Edinburgh Castle, which is they're both in Old Town, which is like the coolest looking city I've ever seen. It is, the buildings, just the architecture is like so gothic and just absolutely stunning. And so we were already just like in awe of just how the city looked. And so what was cool with Edinburgh Castle was that while we were there, they were actually doing like a ceremony celebration type thing to honor all of the different like guard units from Scotland that had served to watch and protect Edinburgh. And so it was really, really cool to see all of the different soldiers in different uniforms and honorary garb and everything. It was just really, really awesome to see, and just gave like so much more, like not even just so much more authenticity to it, because obviously it's authentic, but like it just really increased the vibe. And it was so cool to watch how they were being honored, and that they, like the way they were marching around, it was just so awesome to see part of that history just actually coming to life in front of us. And so that was really, really awesome. Once we were inside the courtyard area, we were able to see just cannons lining all of the parapets. It was really neat, just an absolute fortress. And then when you would go inside, you were able to see the guard room that was like actually having all of the different places or not the places, but had like all of the different units listed that had served and protected. You had like the armory where they had all of the weaponry and everything. So it was just just super duper cool, and just like, you could just imagine them like holding people prisoner there, and it was just so awesome. So, oh my gosh, absolutely loved that. And then the other place that we went to was Hollyrood Palace, and that is just an absolutely beautiful building, just super duper pretty. And when you go inside, they still have like all of the furniture and all of the artwork, and everything is all still up. It's just absolutely beautiful. But the portion that is said to be extra haunted that we went to visit was the old Abbey Ruins that are off to the side of the palace, and still standing, absolutely beautiful. And again, the weather just really lent itself to like making it look absolutely awesome. Like, you could totally just expect to see like just a ghost coming down at you. It was so awesome to see. So for the inner third, on top of the orange, I am going to go with, I think, the more orangey toned gold, and so we're gonna go with Boogie Man for that portion. All right, that is looking really cool. Blending the gold in with the green metallic shade, that is turning out very neat. I think the last thing that I am going to do is I'm going to go with Highgate Cemetery, which is that mint iridescent shade, and we're going to put that on the inner corner, just as like a little pop of green to like really draw it all together. And then I am going to tightline and throw on mascara, and we will be back for the final look, because those were the 3 haunted places that I was really kind of wanting to focus on. I love this palette. I think it's such a cool theme. I really enjoy seeing like some of the cool parts of not only my history, but you know, the histories of the other countries within Europe. I absolutely love that. For those of you that don't know, I was born in Germany and grew up there, spent a decent amount of time in Hamburg, Nuremberg, and Trier, and so I very much love my German heritage. And so I think it's so awesome to just see a palette that really kind of pulls a lot of those cultures together to just show all of that, because I mean, Krampus is a huge part of German Christmas time history. They actually, within Austria, will even do Krampus runs around Christmas time, where like hundreds of people will get dressed up like Krampus, and they will just go running through the streets scaring kids. It's a big parade, and it's so awesome to see. And so I would highly recommend, if you guys ever get the chance to go over to Austria, to check out the Krampus run around Christmas time, because it is so cool to see. And I just love how this palette is like combining all of that stuff together, because I know that, you know, the haunted side of Europe is definitely something that a lot of countries really like, and it's part of the culture. So I think it's so cool that Nomad Cosmetics decided to represent that. And so I'm gonna go ahead and tightline real quick, and then we'll come back for the final look, and I'll come in close so you guys can see how everything blended together. My initial notes, just on the several times that I've used the palette, the mattes blend together really nice. They're super duper pigmented. The shimmers work really nicely. You can either go in with your finger or just do what I did, just go in with a dry brush. It works either way. Both pack a punch, and so I really enjoyed it. The shimmers definitely layer very nicely on top of each other, where you can create a really beautiful blend, as you guys will see with this when I do come in close. And so yeah, I think it's an awesome palette. And if you guys want to see some of the other palettes from Nomad Cosmetics, I'm sure that throughout the video I was linking the Iceland palette and the Berlin Underground palette, where you guys can see some more of my travels and see how the palettes work. And so I know I did 2 eye looks each with both of those palettes, so make sure you guys check those out. If you're wanting to see, Iceland is still my favorite palette from Nomad Cosmetics. That color story, like when you talk about like those awesome greens and blues, I mean, ooh, that palette gets me. But I will be right back with the final look. All right, and we are back with the final look. So I'm gonna come in close so you guys can see all of the different colors. And I just went with a nice medium brown liner this time, just to kind of smoke it out a little bit more. But I absolutely love the colors. I think especially the gold and the more darker green shimmer on top of the lid blended together beautifully in the middle. And so I really like how that showed up. And the matte shades are absolutely beautiful, blended together really nice. And so I think this palette is absolutely awesome, but I would love to know what you guys think. What did you think of the story time? I know that it was very quick, but I was wanting to just give you guys some quick little snippets for traveling. But if you enjoy that, we do have some other palettes from Nomad Cosmetics that are around Italy, and I have done a trip to Venice, so if you guys are interested in me doing a video on that, we do have some palettes for that as well. So just let me know down in the comments. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, thumbs down if you did not. Let me know either way, as we always do here. And if you made it to the end of the video and you have not yet subscribed, I think you should subscribe, if anything, just for this awesome story time that you get on occasion. We do a lot of colorful looks here, talk about indie brands, do all of the swatches all the time, and so if that sounds like fun to you, highly suggest subscribing, come join my family on here, and other than that, you guys just go have a good one.